This is a short one. Our level 5 party found a mysterious shop in the middle of the forest. The shop was full of magical weapons, armor, and other items. The shopkeeper here was a bit suspicious, but apparently many people are coming here to buy things. Even some NPCs knew him. So we decided to investigate the place, but it was all for nothing. Every time we asked the shopkeeper a question and tried to make an insight check to make sure he's not lying to us, our DM always replied with, "He's not lying to you, but he is not saying the full truth." We tried using detect magic, but yeah, everything in the shop was magical, even the floor and the table and the food. We tried investigating the shop itself sometimes, but even with high rolls, the DM only said, "It's a sword," and "It's a normal item." Basically didn't give us any way to get any information about the place or the shopkeeper himself. Finally, one of the players decided to buy one of the items from the shopkeeper. He decided to buy what the shopkeeper called a box of secrets that contained one random magic item in it that may or may not be super powerful. And as soon as our level 5 bard opened it, he was hit by a 9th level disintegration spell and died. No saves, no way to predict or avoid the spell, he just died. Then, our DM started laughing. Apparently, it was an obvious trap that we were supposed to avoid. We'll ignore that this DM basically created loot box in Dungeons & Dragons and move on to the horribly adversarial DMing. I mean, usually when we see adversarial DMs, they're taking advantage of some kind of rule stipulation or just putting really ridiculous encounters in front of their players, but this guy just cuts to the chase. I mean, at least it's not extended BS. So essentially, a brevity win is the only win this guy's DMing is ever gonna get. I'll try to keep this as short as possible. The story takes place a few months back when I was trying to run Horde of the Dragon Queen. Where was I? Oh, right, yeah. It would appear this module is cursed for me. I was running it for 2 newbie players and a couple of experienced players. The experienced lad shall be referred to as L, short for Edgelord, and Packrat. The new players were sisters, and I'll call them Sil and Lynn. We are at the chapter of the story in which the heroes track a bunch of cultists to their camp. It is quite large and filled with hundreds of enemy mercenaries and cultists, as per the module, so it is a heavily suggested thing that the players don disguises and pretend to be mercenaries to infiltrate the camp. A bit railroady to be sure, but there were new players at the table who weren't super adept at plan making just yet, so we all agreed it was the best plan. Once we were behind enemy lines, L decided it was the best time to switch plans and become a murder hobo, asking to find out where the leaders were so he could immediately challenge them to a duel, blowing his cover and likely getting everyone killed. All the while, Packrat was trying to steal the supplies and load them onto a pair of horses tied to a post near the camp entrance, while Sil and Lynn are looking confused about what's going on and just want to look around. I asked L to reconsider his plan of action, as everyone had agreed to keep a low profile since this was an area with a lot of enemies, and a tough combat might be overwhelming for the other two. He was argumentative and cited that this plan was boring. There needed to be action, or this whole chapter would be pointless and dull. The others insisted that if we aggro the entire camp, it would likely be a TPK. They were new players, but they weren't born yesterday. Seemingly insulted by this, he decided to just shout,
"Fuck it.
I'm out." Apparently both in character and out of character, as he described his character storming out of the camp in a huff to just abandon the group. An unnecessary last barb, considering he then decided to pack up and go home as well, despite everyone's protestations that he might be overreacting. Just slightly. Packrat then responded to this by stating that since nobody was paying attention in character, he had successfully loaded up 2 horses worth of saddlebags of stolen gear and wanted to leave with the horses before the mercs at the camp could react. He would also be leaving the game with his stolen loot, since in his eyes this campaign had clearly already fallen apart, despite Sil, Lynn, and myself saying we were willing to continue despite the setback and salvage the game. He decided that he was no longer interested, and also left promptly. The good news is that although the session was unceremoniously cut short, Sil and Lynn wanted to continue from that point onward and brought a few of their own friends to the next session, who joined the team as mercenaries from the camp, who spotted the player characters and were convinced to switch sides. Together, they went on to continue the campaign to its finale. TLDR, Edgelord player quits campaign in a huff mid-session for not being allowed to start TPK level combat. Ninja looter leaves soon after. The remaining players decide to not let this ruin their fun and recruit friends for the next session. That was wholesome as hell, and I'm really glad to see that these players decided to continue on with the game, even if it was Horror the Dragon Queen. But I'm not gonna let my bias against the module set me back from seeing that this is a good thing. I mean, the Edgelord and the Ninja Looter, those aren't good. We've seen plenty of Edgelords, but someone basically going, mind if I roll need in a D&D game is something brand new for us. Ninja looting in D&D is a little bit strange, especially since your rewards don't exactly carry over into other games, unless there's some vast network I don't know about. But anyway, look, point is that it seems pretty pointless. Both these guys bailing out of the campaign just because they basically don't get their way isn't great. If you're going to leave a campaign, at the very least, have the courtesy to wait until the end of the session, or at least try to have a discussion about it with the DM. Rage quitting just ruins the fun for everyone, and just destroys the vibe of a decent gaming table. But hey, at the very least, it worked out for everyone here. Ooh, an open letter. I haven't gotten one of these in a while. Hey friend, I know we're not talking anymore, and hell, I know that talking would be 0% productive, but I have some things I need to get off my chest. First off, please stop with this "I didn't quit, I was fired" BS. You ghosted everyone in the group for a month and were flaking out sessions for a month before that. As one of your fellow players said, sometimes a lack of response is an answer in itself, however unsatisfying. We removed you from the game because you didn't give us much of a choice. And yes, it was a we. I didn't just boot you without asking your fellow players first, and they all agreed. It is actually really rude to blow us off on a pub crawl that you were invited to minutes before the game started. It is also rude to have an entire holiday to another part of the country and not communicate with your group until the day of the game. We're not controlling you or letting you go to other events. We were asking you to either show up to the session you committed to or let us know ahead of time if you couldn't. I don't know what you expected after a month of childish silent treatment, but if you're not happy with how things turned out, look in a mirror. Second, some petty complaints. Begging me for a custom homebrew subclass because nothing else will possibly work with this character. That's annoying. Feeding me D&D wiki subclasses and trying to insist it will be balanced when it would 100% not be balanced. Also very annoying. Never actually using the critical cornerstone ability from this subclass that I spent hours tweaking and balancing. My buddy, my pal, that sucks. You could have been a reflavored official subclass and I wouldn't have wasted my time. Rules as written. Climbing costs 4 feet of movement per 1 foot moved unless you have climbing speed, which you do not have. Stop asking me if you can just do an athletics check. Stop sulking while I say the enemy who strategically positioned themselves on the cliff away from you is not reachable in a single turn. Also, hey, stop metagaming. Your character rolled like crap on perception and arcana and has no idea what a mimic is or if one is in the room with you right now. You commit so much to being in character, except when you roll low. I don't care if it's in character when I ask you to stop cutting off my timid players' attempts to roleplay because it just makes sense. My character would step in. I mean, knock it off. Look, roleplay-wise, I get what you're going for, but you know that players have a hard time speaking up and taking initiative, and they'll fold if you challenge. Your player agency doesn't fall apart by letting a suboptimal decision happen once in a while. When I ask for feedback and criticism, I am asking to help make my game better for both of us. This is my first game, and there's a lot I could be doing better. What's not helpful is you blowing smoke up my ass and then turning around to complain to the other players behind my back, one of whom is my partner who just immediately tells me, like, come on, man. Oh, yeah, the character you constantly joke about being a DMPC is a sad, pathetic, wet cat of a man who runs from any serious conflict and is only with you guys because another party member thinks she can change him. He was a bad guy. I expected you guys to kill him. The fact he's not dead is literally player agency at work. Please stop acting like I somehow engineered this so I could direct the party. Nobody ever listens to his opinions because he sucks. Thirdly, I miss what your sharp wit and your commitment to your character brought to the table. I miss your excited all caps messages when your character's backstory would come up. I miss you laughing hard on mute as other characters got into shenanigans. I miss you helping the newer players with their character builds when I couldn't. All the petty stuff was worth putting up with you to have you there. The game is different now without you, and some plot beats I had planned will never be as good. I am mourning for the fact that you're no longer here. There is a space now at our table where you used to be, and it makes everything different. Not better or worse, just different. If I'm being honest with myself, I always suspected once quarantine was over, you wouldn't be able to stick with it. In retrospect, our friendship was always a bit like that. One-sided, working best when you got your way. Our game was fun when it was the only event you could go to, right? But now the world is open, our friends are vaccinated, and suddenly Sunday night once a month is too much to ask. And you know, we could have ended it on good terms if you had just been honest with us and yourself. The right thing to do was own that we were no longer a priority to you. You didn't want to do that, so you put the gun in my hands and dared me to pull the trigger instead. Maybe you thought I wouldn't, but I did, because I'm not interested in playing the game I love with my friends who I love, while your name is floating around our server like a passive-aggressive ghost. I'm disappointed in you. I miss you. I don't want you back, though. Kind regards, Tupperware. P.S. Your character retired to her hometown and will live out the rest of her days peacefully. That's some class right there. And look, scheduling sucks. Usually people will put characters on a bit of a back burner, put them in a temporary retirement until the player can make more time, instead of kicking them out of the group. However, that's not what we're seeing here. Not only does this guy have annoying scheduling issues and constantly flaking on the group, which in my opinion is more than scheduling, it's lack of communication, which is never good in any group activity, but on top of that, this guy is not exactly the most stellar of player in many ways. I'm sure he's got his good points, and that's a good point here. We see that not every problem player is universally bad. A lot of people have good and bad aspects. Now, I understand looking at all the good aspects and ignoring the bad, but eventually they're gonna pile up, as we see here. I mean, the back talking with your partner, to say the least, that is rough. Legitimately, I could copy paste this letter and send it to one of my own problem players. I mean, the parallels are uncanny with the exception of the scheduling thing. Guess they're just a type, you know? At the end here, we need to realize that if you can't make time for a game, you're not going to be part of the game as much. And if you also act like a dick a lot in that game, they're not going to keep you around at all. And in my opinion, for good reason. Through a friend of mine with an already established gaming group, I was invited to join in their brand new campaign. One of the novel concepts was that all of us were going to be playing different anthropomorphic characters, furry / scaly, more or less. Some chose a Trandoshan, whereas I chose an established fox race called Amran. They're like goblins from World of Warcraft, mixed with the Ferengi from Star Trek. I played a one-eyed, one-armed cyborg Amran based on my long-established character, Damien. In this setting, Damien showed promise within the Empire when a group of Imperial Scout troopers saw him dazzling locals with an exhibition of long-range marksman training. The lead trooper challenged Damien to a contest to see who could outshoot the other. If the trooper won, Damien would have to submit to slavery. If Damien won, then the trooper, on his honor no less, would put in a suggestion to receive Imperial Scout training. Well, Damien kicked his butt, and the trooper held his word. He was taken to the Imperial base on-world and trained. He excelled. Unknown to him, he was being groomed to use his knowledge of his homeworld to hunt down and eliminate the leaders of his own people. In the name of the Empire, of course. When this became clear, Damien shot and killed the squad he was partnered with and went on the run. This was the circumstance of his joining the group. The following game session was where everyone else had a similar jumping in scenario. We all woke up inside of a holding cell reinforced with ray shields. Damien saw a large group of fellow aliens, and all of us had been undressed to our undergarments. Our captor was smart and removed my cyber arm. It was detachable, so no harm done. One alien's description, let's call him Blitz, was that of a big, burly, and masculine white wolf, rippling muscles, real Mr. Universe era Arnold or Conan the Barbarian vibes. When it was Damien's turn to speak, he sat up and rubbed the edge of his head and said, well, if I said this was the first time I woke up next to naked in a dungeon with a bunch of strangers I'd never met, then I'd be lying. And he chuckled. With absolutely zero warning, Blitz's player growls and declares he stomps over to Damien and shouts, "Shut the flip up," homophobic slur. He declares an attack roll. I ask if I can have an initiative roll before attempting to avoid this, and the DM says no. I have no choice but to take the surprise beating for a round. While I'm crit and knocked unconscious immediately, I am deflated real quick. As that game session progressed, on that day, it became clear that I was not getting back up. When introductions were done, an unidentified bounty hunter in Mandalorian-like armor said we were all being summoned to our captor's chamber. When Damien didn't get up, the hunter said that all new initiates had to come along, and if I was too lazy to wake up from my nap, then they had to just drag me. So Blitz said he did that. He literally grabbed Damien's tail and dragged me to Joho's chamber like a kid with a radio flyer wagon. I'm still unconscious. We meet our captor, Joho the Hutt, who pulled the whole, I have a non-specific plan for expanding my empire, wealth, and power. You're all going to help. You help me, I'll make you rich. I will help you get what you want. Typical broker-style NPC, you get the drift. Joho then says we all have to agree. That's when Blitz decides to pull a Weekend at Bernie's and puppeted my unconscious character into agreeing. I wanted to know why I was still out cold at this point, but all the players plus the DM just explained that I was, and I'd know when I was awake. Damien was finally woken up at the beginning of Game 2 to be given back starter gear and to be given the choice of either a weapon upgrade or an armor upgrade. I ask if I can have a bionic implant, similar to a scout trooper's internal HUD display that could be made to an artificial eye for Damien's missing eye instead, to be hidden behind his patch. Joho agreed, and he was given his new cyber eye, clothing and weapons back too. We're told that we're going to take his armored troop transport to an oasis city. There, a rival Hutt has kidnapped the captain of his ship. This ship was biometrically key to that pilot. No pilot means no ship. We boarded the transport. Mid-travel, this Blitz guy began to ask what everyone can do in battle. One by one, they said things like, I'm a great melee combatant, or I literally can use the force. When it got to Damien's turn, which was evident to me due to the group/DM looking at me, Damien/me began to speak. Well, I'm trained in the arts of stealth, subterfuge, and long-distance sniper maneuvers. I'm skilled at infiltration and I thought I made it clear, homophobic slogan. Nobody cares. Shut up. And if you talk again without me telling you to, you die. Once again, Blitz's player said he wants to surprise attack my character. Once again, I asked for initiative prior, even pointing out that the cyberware granted me insight bonuses to not just sense motive, but to initiative rolls too. To my surprise though, the DM denied me a second time, stating that I never stated I was rolling sense motive prior to the attack. I argued, why would I? And said everyone was talking, and that would have interrupted the game. I was told, too bad, so sad. So Blitz rolls. He crits again, somehow, and big boots Damien right in the face, knocking him out cold a second time. No one came to his defense. They treated my beating no differently than someone swatting a fly and continued the planning phase. I spent the rest of the game unconscious and unable to act. Again, all I could do was idly make snoring noises while the rest of the table played the game. Game 3 rolls around and we get to the oasis. They find is way more fortified than Joho initially thought. Guards at every gate, guards on the wall, guards on the towers, you get the idea. The party begins to lament that this is really bad. The Sith Juggernaut actually says, man, it's a real shame. Nobody here has the ability to take out people from long range without being detected. Boy, we're screwed. Were they kidding me? I was about to speak up when a different player pointed out my unconscious character. Hey, he's got a sniper rifle. Blitz authorizes me to be woken up. Damien wakes up, pissed. He says nothing but glares. Blitz tells Damien that the oasis is just over that dude and I need to take out the guards. I was going to do that or else. I say nothing. This makes him mad and demands to know why I'm not talking. He grabs Damien by the throat, hoists him up, and points a knife at his throat. Still, Damien says nothing. Why isn't he talking? Blitz bellows, loud enough to possibly be heard by the very guards we were wanting to avoid. One of the players reminds Blitz that he said if I spoke out of turn ever again or without permission, he'd just kill my character. Oh, that's probably why. Yeah, really. So Blitz says I can talk now. Damien tells them that he in fact does have the skills to take out the guards in such a manner that he never presents himself as a target. Huh, he could sow chaos and disarray with various techniques, and even get everyone inside without a fight. Blitz said to get on with it, or Damien would be thrown out into the dune as a distraction. And I did it! For the first time, I was able to do something. Using a combination of equipment, feats, and a real hot D20, Damien pulled a feat right out of Call of Duty. The other players seemed impressed. Blitz moaned the entire time, calling Damien a coward, saying all snipers were cowards, yada yada yada. Damien didn't engage because he was doing his thing. When the last exterior guard was taken down, Damien said they had a clear path in. The party makes it past the first wall into the outer sector of the oasis. There was a second guard wall similar to the first, but only a pair of guards in front of that gate. I said my skills allow me to get past them and gather recon from within. Once inside, I could text back the layout and they could go from there while I created a distraction. The party agreed. I asked the DM if this counted as a stressful situation. I mean, I'd argue the whole game counts as a stressful situation. I don't know why you're still here, but anyway, let's get back to it. Anyway, that would mean that either a roll is required here or could I just take a 20? He said I absolutely could. My score for stealth with a 20 added to it was insane for our level, and it was exceptionally unlikely I'd have been spotted. So Damien begins to slink his way over. As soon as Damien gets within 10 feet, the guards immediately rear on him. "What are you doing? Intruder!" The pair pull a stun blaster and attack Damien. I ask once again, could I have used sense motive? He says no. Initiative? Nope. The two guards roll. Both are magically crits. Both are max damage for non-lethal. Damien's KO'd yet again, and the pair drag Damien off. Now the party seemed happy. In and out of character, Blitz even high-fived one of the other players. The DM informs me that due to my repeated negligence, a lack of roleplay, and generally not contributing anything worthwhile to the game, that I was being removed from the game. Damien will be killed off screen, and I'd not be allowed to introduce a new character. I was told to pack up and leave, and to kindly never show up again. I was stunned. I asked no why. The explanation I was given was that my character was constantly in the state of incapacitation, so therefore I wasn't really doing much. Damien had failed to see the attacks coming, failed to survive them, and with the exception of my initiation and taking out the guards, I hadn't done a single thing worthwhile. My constant state of unconsciousness dragged down the game. Also, I'm constantly provoking Blitz, forcing his character to beat me to the point of near brain damage. I was told I was toxic, and nobody really liked me anyway. Now, I looked to my friend that invited me in the first place for backup. This absolute trog agreed with them. He said that I just wasn't learning my place, and that it was better for me just to leave. They didn't have to tell me twice. I left, went home, and I'm not gonna lie, I cried. Yes, as a grown-ass man, I cried, because I had never been so confused and betrayed in my life. Since then, I have never gamed with a random group again, and likely never will. TLDR, I get invited to a gaming group for a friend. I roll up my character, and as soon as he's introduced to the game, he's repeatedly beaten unconscious by the party's big bruiser. He's beaten over and over and over again, told never to speak, and even after he flawlessly performs in the one act he was ever able to perform in, the DM used executive privilege to just kill off the character. I'm told no one in the group likes me, and that I should have recognized this, and that I had ruined their experience by even just showing up. This dude clearly cared about their character, and unfortunately, it did not work out here. Honestly, the moment the DM isn't stepping in when random PvP knocks out a character for an entire session, that's when I'm gonna start getting extremely suspicious, and I'd probably even consider just leaving. At this point, life is short and D&D takes forever. There's just not enough time in life to waste time on a game that doesn't make you happy. D&D needs to be fun. D&D needs to be very fun. It's an investment in time and in effort. A lot of people put a lot into this game. But when people like this are just ruining your experience, seemingly on purpose, it's just not worth it to stick around, even if you really enjoy your character. Because at the end of the day, your character's probably gonna get treated like crap, just like this. This kind of reminds me of a lot of hazing experiences. I haven't seen anything like that in a Dungeons and Dragons setting, but this is very reminiscent of hazing experiences that a lot of people go through, especially in university. And yeah, while this is obviously less extreme than some crazy hazing horror stories, this is still not great. It's targeted basically bullying, and it doesn't help anybody to have fun. Even if it can be hard, do not be someone's punching bag. It's never ever worth it. Before I get into this, I did write this hastily, so some of the wording or sentence structures might be a bit off. I mean, I did edit to try and fix it, so I was hopeful to never have a D&D horror story, but here we are. I got here thanks to Crit Crab, Crispy's Tavern, and Den the Drake. Thanks to them for reminding me of the subreddit. Thank you, by the way, for watching. Our story takes place last Monday. Cass is myself as the DM, Monk as the male co-worker, Tabs as my female co-worker, Cleric is my female boss, and Observer, my male non-co-worker. Trust me, the indicator of sex comes into play later. I will preface this with the fact the players were told before the game starts that I will have more control and will make sure we go on a set story, seeing that this session is meant to completely set up the world they are playing in. Any session after this one, they'll have a lot more free reign. I reiterated this before the session. Also, these players are brand new to the game. They all played a one-shot I did for Halloween, and we didn't cover any combat in that one-shot. It all starts when I am setting up my play area. My boss allows us to play in the main dining area after we close up for the day. We're in a restaurant. The Observer was chatting with my boss about doing a music thing later in the week, or maybe the next week. After talking to her about that, he then walked over to me and started up a chat. I thought it went well, and he asked me about sitting in and observing while we played for at least half an hour to maybe an hour. At the time, I didn't see a problem with it. I was so so woefully wrong. So we all started the session, which is a homebrew of Spelljammer and the Radiant Citadel. I know about the issue with Spelljammer, I kept most of those parts out. Anyway, yeah, the first issue began after the observer pointed out that I was fluctuating with my accents, that I should do a better job at keeping them up. I explained I was tired and having a hard time concentrating on the individual accents. The rest of the group didn't have a problem and were okay with me just dropping the accents, but the observer insisted I do the accents to keep the story lively. I gave in and did the best I could and continued. After getting their Spelljammer ship and getting chased down by pirates, I had them teleported, ship and all, to an asteroid, where they met a goddess that told them they were called the Fateless, and could make their own destinies outside the gods because of the way they were torn out of their respective worlds in the one-shot. Then, Observer pitched in again and said that it was unlikely and a poor story, hook and line. He then proceeded to place his coat on my boss's shoulders and started to rub her back. At the time, I did see my boss was slightly uncomfortable. Slightly? Yeah, slightly. I would be a little bit more than slightly uncomfortable if some random dude was giving me an impromptu back massage, but you know. But anyway, she allowed it. I thought at the time that if my boss had an issue, she would say something, but unfortunately, she didn't. Observer would make a comment every now and then to my other coworker, Tabs, which I did notice that it would make her uncomfortable too. By the time of this happening, we started a few rounds of combat. Observer, after the first round, then proceeded to berate all the players about how they didn't know how to play the game and clearly had no idea how to fight. I reminded him that they were new at this, and this was their first combat, and that his half hour was up, so he should probably go. After that, he got up and suggested he play with us next time and wanted to play an overpowered psionic character like Mewtwo. He left and we were able to get back into the game, and it went rather well after that. I found out the next morning through Monk that the cleric/boss received a lot of sexually explicit texts after we finished the game. She made the decision to not allow him to play his music at the restaurant in the future, and made the decision never to allow him to play at any of our future sessions. We proceed then to make new rules for our game that only coworkers and family were allowed to play or watch from now on, and that's only after everyone has given consent. As of today, though, my boss has received several more sexual texts, and now texts that we are racist country bumpkins and two-faced for denying the observer the ability to play in our D&D group and the restaurant in general. I didn't say it before, but yes, he is a person of color. She has received texts from several different numbers now that she and us are the reason people like him don't ever want to come to small towns. He has even threatened a lawsuit. I will update if the situation gets worse. Not really going to entertain the racism thing. That guy is clearly just using it as an excuse to send some incredibly creepy stuff to the women in this group. Not great at all. This should have been called at the impromptu back massage. Yes, she didn't say anything, but at the very least, you should ask out loud. Show some support. A lot of people aren't comfortable calling out because they don't know how other people are going to respond. They're afraid of being viewed as the bad guy for aggravating the situation or getting upset. If you yourself show support by simply asking, hey, are you okay with this happening? That communicates that you are in support, which is a major thing for a lot of people. It's not a confrontation, it's just a question, and a simple question that can save a lot of trouble. Also, obviously, less important than the harassment. The mockery during the D&D game, the mockery of how the players play and how the DM DMs, that is an absolute no-go. That is the enemy of playing good D&D. If you don't feel comfortable just letting loose and enjoying and engaging in the game, if you feel like you're being cringe for just playing the game your way, mistakes and all, that's never going to fly. You're constantly going to have that shadow over your head, and frankly, having someone vocalize those thoughts, that is an absolute no-go at any games. That's not to say observers are always bad, but here we see an example of it done horribly wrong in more ways than one. Alright, and with that, we are going to end today's episode of RPG Horror Stories. By the way, if you guys want to leave me a voicemail and tell me about your own D&D woes or horror stories, go down into the description or the pinned comment where you can click the link, hit record, and leave me a voicemail. I'll be answering them in a podcast this Wednesday. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, then you can check out our Tabletop Tavern Tips series where we give advice for both DMs and players old and new. And while you're there in the cards, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content right as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down to the comments down below. If you can't leave a comment, leave the comment impromptu back massage to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.